This is the story of our 10-day eclipse-chasing camping adventure in Mexico. We camped in deserts, mountains, and by the seaside in Sonora, Sinaloa, Chihuahua, and Durango states. We were questioned by federales, saw fabulous scenery, and met great people. Our adventure started with an SUV rental in Tucson. At the rental agency, I neglected to mention that we planned to take the SUV far past the 100-mile limit from the border that was mentioned in the contract's fine print. This was the first sketchy thing I did regarding the rental. At the border station, the guard asked us where we were going. I answered Chihuahua and Coahuila to see the eclipse. Now, I had read about a temporary driving permit, but I assumed that we could purchase one at the border if we needed it. The border guard never said anything about a temporary driving permit, so I figured it wasn't necessary. This came back to bite me hard later, though. So we're here in Mexico. It's Thursday, April 5th, I think. And we crossed at Agua Prieta, and we noticed the border fence. And there it is, and it goes for miles and miles and miles, and you can see it going for miles and miles and miles and miles, way up into those mountains over there. So that's quite a border fence. There you go. Our first night we camped in an open desert scrub near Nuevo Casas Grandes in Chihuahua. Throughout the trip, I slept on a cot while my companions pitched a tent. Our second day driving, we were stopped on a lonely country road by two plainclothes cops with pistols. They asked to see our temporary driving permit. Using my basic Spanish, I explained that the guard at the border never said anything about a permit. After about 15 minutes pulled over waiting on the roadside, they called a woman cop who spoke English. I related the whole border guard story again. She discussed it with the two cops there and told me that we had two choices. We could either waste 2 days driving back hundreds of miles to the border to get the permit, or I could risk serving 2 days in jail and having the car impounded if we got stopped again without the permit. After this scare, one of our party decided that they wanted to turn around, but I decided to press on and risk jail because we were so close to the path of totality. So we kept driving and had a great meal at this restaurant in Satavo, Chihuahua. Our second night camping was by this river in Valle de Zaragoza in Chihuahua. Driving on the third day, I suddenly called out, "Oh no, another checkpoint." But this time, instead of two guys with pistols, there were 8 federales with machine guns. I related the whole border guard never asked us about the permit story again. Because I'm not used to being on the wrong side of the law in a foreign country, this was pretty nerve-wracking. My throat was dry. I remember thinking that as long as they weren't asking me to get out of the SUV, everything would be okay. But once I got out of the SUV, the next step would be handcuffs. After another 15 minutes on the side of the road, a friendly Chicano helped us out with translation. I ended up bribing one of the cops using the old cash in the handshake maneuver, and we were on our way. I'd like to point out that if we were in the USA without the necessary paperwork, I would probably have paid a hefty fine and possibly done some time in a local jail before being deported. We would also have missed the eclipse. But in the pragmatic Mexican way, we paid our small bribe and we were on our way. I certainly did the best I could from that point on to avoid any more checkpoints. Driving toward Torreon, which was predicted to have the clearest skies, we stopped in the small city of San Juan del Rio just to use an ATM. But I noticed some women wearing Eclipse t-shirts and name tags, so I struck up a conversation with them. It turns out that they worked for the Durango State Tourist Agency and were very happy to see us foreign tourists. In fact, we were interviewed on state TV. They gave us a tour of town and we joined them for dinner. So after dispersed camping for 3 nights and with such friendly local people, we decided to forego our original eclipse viewing plans and stay in town for the eclipse. So here I am on the roof of the GH Hotel in San Juan del Rio, Durango State, and this is where I'm planning on viewing the eclipse from. It's partially cloudy, as you can see now. So it's about a half hour till first contact when the moon starts taking the bite out of the sun. So just a little panorama of the nice little town. It's a nice little town. San Juan del Rio. People have been friendly. Although I got some wicked naked eye views, including a bright fuchsia prominence, the high clouds prevented obtaining pristine views of the solar corona like this. But I was able to get some cool views of the eclipsed sun like this. So we drove over 1,000 kilometers to where it was predicted to have the clearest skies, and instead had mixed clouds. And the areas with the most predicted cloud cover, Maine, Quebec, New Hampshire, those places had pristine skies. After the excitement of the eclipse, we drove to Mazatlan on the beautiful Autopista Durango-Mazatlan, which crosses the rugged Sierra Madre Occidental. This route has fantastic mountain scenery, more than 60 tunnels, and 150 bridges above multi-thousand-foot cliffs over giant canyons. Now in Sinaloa State, we carefully crossed train tracks and creeks and drove across deep sand to camp on the Playa El Verde Camacho, next to the Santuario Tortuguero El Verde Camacho. After setting up my cot, I looked for something to use as a camping table, so I tried moving a small log. A whole colony of big spiders came pouring out. And here I thought that spiders were solitary creatures. Continuing driving, we decided to take a long detour to see some whales and other marine life along what we thought was the Pacific Ocean. We expected it to look like the coast of California with beautiful cliffs, but we were actually next to the Gulf of California across from Baja, so it was all flat desert scrub. In Sonora, heading back towards Arizona, maybe I'll get some cactus in the video.
Off the road!
You can see the organ pipe cactus now in my video that I'm filming as we zoom across the Sonoran desert. We had to get the SUV detail to get all the mud out of the underpanels and to buff the scratches off the side from when I scraped it on bushes. We beat the heck out of that poor SUV, but it was reliable. Back in Tucson, I spent a lovely morning in the Sonoran Desert Museum in Saguaro National Park. Inspired by the quiet beauty all around me, the lush profusion of cacti that covered the desert floor, I had an epiphany. The only real thing in this world is the environment, the cacti and other living things that surrounded me there. Maybe there is also a universal spirit permeating everything. Everything else is just a fabrication of our minds. I took a 1.5 mile walk one night in Tucson and saw 5 cop cars with a guy on the ground in cuffs and another being chased. In my 3 trips to very different parts of Mexico this year, I did plenty of walking around pretty basic neighborhoods and never felt unsafe. I also never saw teenagers hanging out on street corners or in 7-Eleven parking lots like in the USA. I do think Mexico is more family-oriented. After the trip, one of our party mentioned that people don't have guns in Mexico, and maybe in part that's why it's safer. I said that we saw lots of guns in Mexico, all held by cops. We saw lots of cops in Mexico, all different kinds, federal cops, state cops, National Guard, park rangers, even the Army, and they all had guns. Although bribing the cop did allow us to see the eclipse, playing fast and loose with the rules can have its costs. In our 2,000-mile drive, we saw 5 or 6 big rig trucks crash. In a similar drive in the US, you might see 1. So maybe the trucking rules are looser in Mexico, or drivers just ignore them. We had a great camping eclipse adventure in Mexico.